This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, turn on the recorder and everything.
It says recording in progress.
There you go.
Normally you can hear it say it. Good. Okay. We're good.
Are we all good to go? So we'll call the meeting to order at 1:34. And if you can, Lisa, if you can call the roll, please.
Okay, Vice Chair Espiritu,
Not present.
Commissioner Powell, Commissioner McDonald,
Present.
Commissioner Hitchcock,
Present.
Chair Kunkel.
Present.
Okay.
First thing we'll do is approve the agenda. The commissioner should have that. And we've got 3 of us here, so that's adequate to vote on the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda?
I have 3 additional items I'd like to discuss today if they're not covered in the business.
Okay, and I've got some other things that likely will be covered under the director's status report. What are the items that you've got?
I want to know the discussions where they are with BLM on moving their refueling operation.
Okay, that's one of the ones that I've got.
I would like to make a recommendation out of this committee for the additional $5 million that's been obtained from the state to be used towards the water and sewer extensions on the southeast part of the airport.
Okay,
And finally, I'd like to know what marketing efforts are being done by the advertising folks to sustain our American Airlines flights.
okay. So the third item that you've got,
Marketing.
I don't have that. The other 2 will be covered under stuff that we've got on the agenda. So let's add as item number 13, marketing efforts. Any other corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second, all right, moved and seconded. All those in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. And Mr. Espiritu is here. You'll note that, please. All right, Mike, we've approved the agenda, so we're looking at approval of the minutes for the September 13, 2022 regular meeting. Those are in your packets. And they should be they should be fine. But are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from our September meeting? Hearing none, chair would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Right. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes for the September 13 meeting. All those in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, a lot of things have changed in the last week plus, and so Mr. Juan Fuentes is going to provide us the Air Center Director status report. He and I went through some things yesterday, and Juan, if you go ahead and start your presentation.
Sure. Mr. Chair, committee members, so I'm just going to go over some of the prior projects that was being reported on. And I'll just hit the very highlights on where we are on some of these projects. The first one is the MAT number 2 apron rehab project. Again, I just wanted to provide a little bit of a brief project summary for those that are not familiar, or you might have some members in the public who haven't heard about this project. But where we are with this project is staff and Armstrong are working to finalize the revised project area for survey and geotechnical. So that is underway. The PER for runway 1735 rehab, Armstrong Task Order H has been issued under PO 22-300-266, and so that is still underway. As we go into the next coming months, weeks, we'll be able to provide a little bit more detailed update as to what actual activity is going on. But I just kind of wanted to give everybody just a recap of where we are with some of these projects. We'll go ahead and go to the next one. The master plan, as you can see there, we did issue a task order G, number 22-300-214. With this project here, I know Scott at the time, he was waiting on a recommendation to establish a technical advisory committee. And I believe maybe, I'm not sure if that was something that Scott or Joe was discussed, but I think we are waiting on that. That was just one of those steps that staff was working on at that time.
It appears that now that's you.
Now that will be me, so I will be carrying the ball on that. So
Okay.
again, I will provide more information in the next advisory meeting. Yes.
Now, on this task force, that is strictly just to look at the airport itself? Just the proper, not talking about building, we talked about what to keep the airport itself running, taxiways, runways.
Well, let me Joe, help on that.
Yeah, this master plan is required by the FAA over a certain period of time. So this is just for the air center itself, and it is to govern all those different pieces. A lot of the maps that have been utilized in the feasibility studies and everything all came from that master plan. And so this is all to do with the air center operations, its future, its current infrastructure and everything.
Talking about inside the fence.
Yeah, essentially inside the fence. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the next one. The West Terminal parking lot as well, the task order I has been issued. We're pending final review of the plan specs and the contract documents. So staff will be working with Armstrong on that end. The Ascent water line, and this update is provided by our engineer. The water line is operational, still to be completed are some pavement repairs and cleanup of the project site.
And one, has the as-built been provided to Ascent?
I'll have to follow up with our engineer on that, and I'll get back to you on that question.
One, go back.
Let's go back.
The west parking lot, where actually is that?
Joe, that would be on the right.
It's the area up against the fence.
Okay,
So, and it comes out from there up to the newer parking lot. So it's that area there.
so that'll be closer than what's across the street.
Yes.
We'll provide a visual map at our next meeting that we all have an idea, just
Okay.
making sure how much information in the past has been provided to you all. So we'll provide a visual.
All right, did anybody look on the east side over there? I mean, you could get all that asphalt stuff out there at the highway on 70. If you rip that in, you can put a pretty good parking lot there for nothing.
You know, Mayor, and we've utilized that on a couple other of the areas. The DOT has actually been very helpful for us to expand out some, at least some improved parking, right? Without the stripes and everything. So we can check into that.
Any other questions? We'll go to the next one. Number 6, the southeast water line. So the update on that is White Cloud is mobilizing on October 17th and start prepping for the setup valves. Subcontractor Tapmaster will mobilize on 10/25 to start installing the setup valves. Additional water line and parts are to be delivered to the project site by the end of the week. So that's going to start moving along pretty quick. The rub hanger, again, the installation of the 121-185 rub hanger. We're finalizing the site selection, and we are working on the scope of work with the architect, the engineers with Armstrong, and that is in progress.
What locations have you looked at?
Are you considering?
The location, I believe it's next to the water tower.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
Yeah, could we go back to item 6?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There was a discussion when we met with the county a week and a half ago about the additional $5 million that's been obtained from the state. I think it's a kudos to Councilor Perry for obtaining that. But I'd like to see a recommendation on this commission to the city council to earmark those funds to complete this process or project out to where we needed to get to do further development.
And, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, so that item will be covered under item number 9. I will provide additional information on that $5 million. So we'll be discussing that state appropriation.
This 2 million was the first part of the plan. Right.
It's not going to be enough.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, we'll discuss it under item number 9.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
You've done better without the assistance.
So I just wanted to kind of give you all just an update that we have these 2 projects that have been closed and completed. The rehab of taxiway A and G and the wind cone G location. Lisa has been working with Armstrong to kind of administer these grants, and the final payment app has been submitted, so these have been closed. So we just kind of want to also give you just an update when we do close these grants. We're getting things done, and we'll be monitoring these grants a lot closer moving on in the fiscal year. And I believe, we'll go ahead and, so that completes, I believe, the update on the projects. Go to the next slide. And we'll just kind of give some high-level overview on the activity. There's some information. Go ahead.
Are there any plans to do taxiway charter?
I haven't seen any task order or any grant on that one, but I will follow up with Armstrong on that question.
It's becoming more and more utilized as of late, and it's in serious need of something. So put that on your list. Well, Mr. Chair, put that on your list. And you guys,
Check out taxiway charter.
check it out, find out what we need to do, get it rehab, whatever needs to be done.
So I wanted to provide a little bit more information. I know from looking at the past PowerPoints, there was some financial information. Just kind of wanted to provide a little bit more as far as the money that has been received by the Air Center. This information comes from the title report that we use our accounting system. So I checked with Janie, and all the numbers are at least up to date. Again, it is for the first quarter. And what I wanted to just show you here, just in this report, which it only covers the revenue side, and I highlighted the major sources of money that comes in, which is federal grants, charges for services, and rental fees. And we'll dive into a little bit more detail on that. But as you can see there, when you look at federal grants, I mean, obviously we are working some of those grants, and we just closed 2 of them. And I'll show you a little bit more information on that.
I'm sorry, Juan, would you please get copies of that and hand those out?
Yes, sir. I will provide copies. They're not in there because I was working on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
But
I can't hardly read that.
yes, sir. On the future, we will provide this information.
Just know, I'd like it today,
Okay.
now,
Okay.
while we're talking about it, so we can ask the
Well,
appropriate
then let's
questions.
go ahead and we'll skip this item here. And then that way we can provide the copies. If you'd like to, we can kind of move on to the next item.
And by the first quarter, this is through September 30th?
Yes, sir. Yes. So, and it might be better to provide the PowerPoint in its entirety. That way you have it. So would you like to consider there? Would you like to, how would you like to proceed, Mr. Chair, so that we can have time? Would you like to take a break? And then we can provide copies?
We've got to remove somebody to go get copies. Let's go ahead and do that. If you can go to your next slide, if that's in the packet, then let's do it that way.
Well, let's go to the next slide. Actually, the next couple of slides are financial information. So that one is in the packet. So, well, actually, Lisa, you go and then I'll flip through the channels to the slides. Okay, so this information here is from the aircraft parking. And as you can see there, the trend is obviously as more planes are leaving out, we are seeing less planes. On your left, you have the number of planes, and then on your right is actually the money that's being collected from the parking fees. So we did provide in your packet the data that goes with this chart, because I know last meeting there was some question about where the numbers were coming from, and so Lisa provided the detailed numbers behind it. But we just wanted to give you all a visual of course, as we lose some of the planes either for X reasons, then obviously we see a little bit more decline on that side, on the revenue side. But,
So on the decrease in parked aircraft out there, you anticipate that continuing, or is that a short-term deal, or?
well, actually, we may see that continue. I know when we looked into the numbers a little bit further in, I think one of the bigger tenants out there, we've seen a decrease in the number of planes that they're reporting.
Okay.
So we anticipate we may end up seeing that a little bit more. And then until we get a little bit better feel as to are we going to see more planes coming back, or but that is going to require some dialogue with the tenants.
So you anticipate talking to AirSale, Cabu, and some of the others about the number of aircraft that they're anticipating being parked out here?
Yeah, if nothing else, it is for information purposes to see what they foresee being the activity in the coming months.
Right.
Are everybody out there is paying, or is American getting free or free parking?
No, everybody is paying, and again, these are in your packets. We have that detailed information, but this accounts for everybody that has planes out.
Based on that decline, would you anticipate, it sounds like that's probably going to continue as planes go back into service unless Chairman Powell crashes the economy. How is the Air Senate going to adjust operations at the lower revenue?
Well, normally what we've done in the past, I mean, obviously, right now, and now once I go back to the numbers, after this slide, we'll go back to the numbers where we can talk about your question about what we'll be looking at. So if there's any other questions, and I'll get back to your question right now.
We've got these now.
Okay.
They're two pages, so pass them out as,
Yes, some people only got.
yeah, so there are 2 pages for each one. Okay. So give him that paper, and then here's another packet. No.
Now you got the whole package. Thank you.
Okay, so let me go back to this slide here now that you have the numbers in front of you. So the charges for services, the majority of those revenues are your parking fees. Okay, so going to your question, Mr. Hancock, about, well, as you can see there, in the first quarter, obviously, we should be at 25%. So what you see here is, we're a little bit slightly under 24.40. We're close. So what we start monitoring and see what the trend is coming in for the next couple of quarters. And obviously, as we see the trend, as you saw in the graph, then asking those questions from the tenants is, do you see more planes leaving than coming? Then obviously we'll be able to monitor that closely, and we'll have to adjust. Those are one of the 2 major sources of revenue, is your parking fees and your rental fees. So as we go into the fiscal year, we're going to be monitoring those trends and the revenue coming in. Okay.
Is the plan to base your revenue off parking only?
Well, my plan is just an interim plan, it's just to monitor. But it's just to monitor right now. I'm just sharing the information because it's not just based on parking fees. It's based on the federal grants and it's based on the rental fees. And we'll go into the rental fees as well. That will be the next leg of this presentation. As you can see there on the rental fees, for example, we budgeted 2.5 and we're about 27% collected for that first quarter, which is good. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide.
So,
Go ahead.
Juan, before we leave, I mean, obviously 25% should be if everybody's paid.
Mhm.
So does that mean that some folks have paid in advance, or why do we have two more percentage points on the
Right. And to answer that question is going to require a little bit more research and more detail.
Okay.
So they're good questions, and I think, these are some of the things that internally we discussed. I think it's going back and finding out, okay, what is the reason? Is it because we're past due on some of those collections? And if so, how much? And so we're going to dive into more of that information, but that will require additional time
Sure.
for staff to kind of get a little bit better handle on this, on those numbers. Any other questions?
Yes. Excuse me. Sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Which revenue number is right? Page 1 or page 2, actually? They're different.
Well, let's go to the page 2. So what you see here is this number here on the year-to-date actual that you see the little bit of a difference is because it includes the net transfers. Okay, in our Tyler report, the system report, when it generates the revenue report, it also accounts for the net transfers. What I was trying to show here is only, that's why you see the net transfers being down below. I just wanted to kind of separate that from the transfers. That's the reason for that slight
and that's
difference.
good. But I would think that revenue number would meet or match the revenue total on the other page. And it doesn't. It's not off by much.
Right, that's right. And again, it's because of the net transfers. I did not include the net transfers in this first slide. And I understand what you're referring to. The numbers is a little bit flat, and that's why I made that notation. Oops, sorry. That this number here includes the net transfers number. The other one does not. I will, for the next report, I will include this report so that way both numbers match up. Yeah. But I did notice that. That's why I included that disclaimer, that little notation there.
And I presume the transfers were the general fund?
The transfers were, well, and I don't have the detail here on the transfers, but I will provide additional information on that. There were very small transfers that were coming in, both from the general fund and some of the other funds. But as you can see, let's see.
This had to have been an outflow because it reduces from the first quarter activity.
Let's go to the next slide. Oh, no, let's go back. As you can see there, I mean, that's why it was an outflow, the net outflow. We have net transfers of 8.7. The year-to-date actual was only 11,607. But that's the net, okay? And that's, again, when we print out the system report, it will show the detail. I can provide the detail if you like. It's just that I didn't want to provide the detail in the slide because that's too many numbers. I just wanted to provide a high-level summary. Okay. And before we go on into these slides, the finance department will be reporting to DFA the first quarter for the all citywide. Once that report is finalized, it will be presented to the finance committee. I will just take that information that only belongs to the Air Center, and I will provide it at the next meeting. We will have it at the next meeting. And that's just what we report to DFA, which will be basically the same information in a little bit different format, but I just want you all to kind of be aware of what is being reported to the state as well.
You know, I'm sorry, as I look at these line items, I have two other questions now. 4338, fire suppression. Is that a recurring number monthly? $227,000.
Again, this is the heading that was used. I'll need to provide the detail behind it, okay? There's more line items underneath this category. So I'll need to provide that detail, the line item, and I can provide that to you all if you like.
Probably just reading.
You don't understand how the fire station.
Okay, and the generic 5100 Air Center, what would be encompassed in that?
Well,
370,000.
let's put it in there.
Well, that's a revenue item.
That's a revenue. That, all of these are the expense side. All of these up here
Okay,
are
what-
the expenses.
Under Air Center year-to-date actual, is
And
that
that's,
360?
and that's a capital. Okay? And again, that's why I'm saying, this is just what, the description you see here are just the titles and the summary of the main grouping. I have to provide you all the detail, all of the line items that go with that category. That will give you a better understanding of where what is the actual activity for that number. But 369 is, a lot of that is capital, and that's related to grants.
Fair enough. But there's enough complexity and detail in this. If we had had 2 days ahead of time to review it, it'd make it a lot easier.
Sure.
Going forward.
And I believe that's one of the things that Bud and I talked about, and I think going forward, that's the information we want to be able to provide you all in detail. And in a way, those are the questions that is going to help staff, because we'll be able to provide that detailed information moving forward.
So Juan and I first met yesterday. We spent 2 hours together because I was gone and he was just getting on board. However, for the month of November, if you would provide, now we're going to be a month behind, are we not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're going to be a month behind, but for the month of November, if you would get as current as we've got,
Mhm.
which would be September, I guess.
No, October.
So,
No, you don't, yeah, we won't have it for November.
September.
It won't be October. It's going to be September. We'll have
He's saying this was through September.
Is that first quarter?
Yes, this first quarter is through September.
Okay, so then for the November meeting, we should have.
October.
Okay, so if we have October's, Juan can get that specifically, let's get that stuff to all of us, but to John, so he has time to look at, absorb it, ask questions. And I think between John and you, because of your background expertise, we can satisfy, hopefully, most of the questions that John's going to have, because he's going to be pickier than the rest of us are likely because of his background. And if we do that, that benefits the whole course. Sure. That satisfactory, John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, if I understood what you said correctly, then you're fixing to make first quarter books for the whole city, because you got to report that to DFA, correct?
Mhm.
And from that matrix, you can pull out and hopefully answer all his questions.
Yes.
Okay,
So it's,
any other questions? Mike, you had a question.
Thank you, Chairman. One, back to parking fees.
Mhm.
What are we at with aircraft today versus what is our steady state? What is the rough steady state number? What's the contrast? How many do we have? How many do we have currently and how many do we normally have? What's the difference? Do you see that we see a great?
Yeah, it's went down quite a bit. I think at the beginning of the year, Aircel maybe had like 190 something, and now they're down to like 60. So it's been dropping pretty low. And so this, we created the monthly on how it's going down. So the green is how many aircraft there are. And then the number, of course, in the blue is the fees that were associated with those numbers. And so that fluctuates.
So my point is where do we think that's going to end as far as the number? I mean, that's always going to move somewhat, right?
Right.
But what is our normal steady state? Where do we see that dropping to? Because when we talked about income and talked about parking fees, I'm trying to see where we're going to be at, whatever that loss is today until we end up.
So, yeah, parking airplanes, nobody wants to do that.
Stabilize.
That's not the aviation business.
That's right.
Fly airplanes parking. So.
Right. Yeah, it's going down. It's
Parking,
definitely going down
the spikes in parking that we've had were just a windfall
because of
for
COVID.
the facility, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
whether it's 9/11 or
Mhm.
any, those spikes like that. So, I mean, the parking fees should never be your
And
go-to revenue source is what I'm saying.
on, like you said earlier,
They should be.
the conversation with the various tenants is going to allow us additional information to come up with something that I think will be stabilized over time for airplanes that are parked out here, which basically is airplanes that they're trying to fix to get back into service.
Well, right now, that might be an accurate statement, but the normal, if you take the COVID deal out of it, most airplanes are parked for either end of life,
Okay,
or they are lease returned and waiting to go somewhere else.
okay.
So that still means that parking is a short-term lifespan for that airplane. So I guess I just didn't want to see the airport move to like, look, you just need to try to park more airplanes. I mean, that isn't what we should base any revenue. Any revenue we get for parking is basically free
It's
money.
nice. Yeah, it's nice.
How many did we have pre-COVID?
I'd say there was probably about 185 out here.
385, so we're down to 242, we got 60 more to go.
Yeah.
So that's,
Well, yeah,
we've lost 120.
well, October, whatever date that is, January.
So in 8 months, we lost 120, we got 60 more to go, we're back to normal.
And that was, the normal there was is that a couple of airlines retired some big fleets, and that moved up the numbers with the MD-80s. American was 328. And those have all managed to either fly somewhere else or get crushed up or moving on. So I would say your normal state, you ought to look at probably more of 100 airplanes would be a normal state at best, without any influence from another economics or natural disaster or global disaster or anything like that. Just something to think about, man.
So if Matt is correct, and I'm assuming that he's probably fairly close with his background, then we should have a reasonably stabilized income stream, give or take with 100, maybe 120 aircraft. And so that's how we need to plan for that. But I think that should also come from talking to the tenants that we've got out here also. Get their input into it. Because hopefully AirSail will be bringing some more aircraft in here. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you for that input, Randy.
Thank you.
Kiss my rear grin before.
If I can find Charlie's phone number, I'll give him a call again.
I guess the bottom line is that the parking of airplanes is somewhat predictable, but it's an ever-changing, it's very fluid. So you really can't depend on, you can't go to Aircel or Taboo or anyone say, well, how many airplanes are you going to park? They don't really know. They kind of sit back and wait for the airplanes or passengers to come and say, I've got 10, I've got 5. It's really, that can change.
So based on Matt's prognosis here, just for the benefit of everybody in this room, how do we generate income with this air center?
Building facilities to maintain aircraft.
That's correct. And land, we also lease land.
Yeah. Well,
So that's where we all need to focus to generate income for this facility, which everybody knows. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Mike.
All right, we'll go to the next slide and I'll have Lisa explain the numbers since she is the one who tracks them.
So this one is for passenger boardings. I know that last meeting, there were some questions on the numbers, which were inaccurate. It is sent to us from Aflac. And what this number is only people that are departing from Roswell. So it doesn't include people that are getting off from different cities or anything here. This is just departures.
Is that 5,100 on the last knob?
Yes, it is.
5,100 over.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't match this 5-week report for the month of August that's in our pack.
So the numbers were, well, I'm gonna have to look. Are you looking at just the departures?
Yes, because that's all DOT, that's all counts for DOT.
Right here, the 5,100.
No, there's a spreadsheet, 5 weeks for DFW and Phoenix.
So I know,
What to my comments
Yes, yes,
about our
yes.
marketing?
yes, so that was submitted from Aflac and there was an error. If you counted down week by week, it matches the 5,100, but they put incorrect numbers on the side for what DFW and Phoenix was. So yes, that was the error. They had different numbers that did not match up to their weekly total. You're right, it was incorrect.
Okay, I didn't bother to add the columns.
And that's the
And the
difference.
question I'm trying to figure out on my own, what were our load factors in August for Phoenix and for DFW? And with their
I
numbers,
think you have that in
it was
here, right?
56% for Phoenix and 59.5%. for
Right, and it
DFW.
was.
But
Mhm. Yeah.
So it true total was 5,100.
Mhm.
I can't tell how that's broken down between Phoenix and DFW without accurate information.
Right, and so and you're correct. If you were to add the totals down, you'd get the correct information, but if you were just to go by what was presented that last time, it was incorrect on the side. So, yes, you are right about that. Yeah, so by week, they have it separated between DFW and Phoenix arrivals and departures.
See how difficult it is to get off on a tangent with inaccurate information?
Yes.
So-
I do know that Scott did contact them and request and let them know that their report was inaccurate. So the numbers were fixed from the last meeting because of that.
So, John, because of your request earlier on some marketing information, do we want to talk about that? Because we're here right now, do you want to?
You know, if we're at 5,100 instead of, well, I still think the sun is pretty close. Close 60% of the DFW is not in the sun. And the other summary report that you showed me a minute ago, thinking it was the financial, right, showed a 43% decline for Phoenix from a year ago and a 40% decline this year for DFW. So our numbers are declining.
That's never good.
That's never good, especially in the eyes of America.
So the third party that we have spent $66,000 on, Eden Hunt, they part of that process that we need to contact them and.
I think they make the recommendations.
What I would recommend with this, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, because we don't have that information here. I do know there's an item on the city council agenda on advertising at the Air Center this round as well too. what I would ask is let me bring in that information because we're wrapping up exactly how we were going to handle the newer campaigns with the grants and everything. I would like to have that information rather than spend a lot of time on the hypotheticals.
But I do think for your benefit, one, that Mr. Hitchcock has identified for everybody here as ridership goes down, that's not a good thing in our interaction with America. And if there's something we need to do to attempt to increase that ridership, we don't want to wait 6 months to do that.
And I would also suggest with that, because we are down to 2 flights for Dallas and 1 flight for Phoenix. We're not back to the 3rd flight, so let's make sure we keep those percentages in account as well too, because we want to get that 3rd flight back. We would love to get the 2nd flight back to Phoenix as well too. That's our goal. So.
Okay.
I don't know about the information you looked, I haven't been through the packet yet. I have that out in the car, if that will help you if we need it. If you didn't bring it, that's where I left come here. If you need that information, I'll keep answering questions. I will get it.
I don't think we need to get it right now. Thank you, Tim. Okay, Juan, proceed.
What's the next? Go ahead.
Okay, so the airport operations, this is a slide we did for, to keep up with the months as well, so you can see what the progress is. Right now for August, it was 2,429. I know there were some questions. So airport operations covers anything that takes off or lands here, whether it's the general flights that come in, if it's military operations, any training operations. So it's anything that's taking off and landing here. That's what that number is.
Touch and goes not counted?
Huh?
Touch and goes are counted or not?
I believe they are. I'm not 100. Did you know, Jen?
Well,
I think that.
where do you get these numbers?
So those come from the tower, and then we can look at them online as well.
Well, the way they used to do it is that if you have somebody coming in on an IFR plan, then they get 3 counts. And if it's just a VFR flight, you get 1. And every operation is if one of these military jets comes in and shoots an approach, doesn't touch down, that's still an operation.
Okay.
As far as they're concerned.
Okay. Mr. County.
So that's the reason why I need to find out where you're getting these. But that may not represent an actual landing and takeoff, which in itself is 2 operations.
Right.
2 more. Get 1 entering the airspace, and you get another one.
What does AC and AT stand for, the column headings?
We're really beginning. Sorry. Sorry. Oh, okay. So aircraft was AC. Or Jenna, do you remember?
I don't, I know it's GA and military,
No, GA and military are
Yeah.
separate columns.
right?
It's right here.
And it is broken up by instrument approaches and visual flight as well, overflights. So it does look like they're counting the session goes, it's an overflight. And the session goes. But I don't know what the AC or the AT legend would be.
And let me add, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that this is something that all these questions that you all are asking is part of what we want to, moving forward, we want to be able to provide those answers in that detail. In a sense where we're wanting to reset and make sure that as we move forward, we provide more information and be able to answer your questions, whether what, for as an example, the FAA numbers that are reported, what is that? What does that represent? That's going to require a conversation with the tower. The detail on the what are those headings mean, we're going to go back and get that information. So I appreciate all the questions, and like I said, I apologize for not having the answers right away, but all of this feedback will help us to do a better job moving forward. So be patient with us as we go through this transition period, but we'll be able to provide better data.
All All right, if there's no other questions or comments, Juan, go ahead and proceed.
And with that, Jenna, that will be Jenny's.
So this is a compilation of the monthly lease revenue for August. I broke the larger MROs or the larger aviation entities out on the first category, and then the miscellaneous underneath. Last month, you had asked that I would bring the larger entities from non-aeronautical and list them as well. So I did break them out so you can see that the New Mexico Department of Transportation, what they're paying monthly. IPS is Information Protection Services. It's a company here that it's like an Iron Mountain. They keep documents and they shred documents, a shredding company, but they also are a storage facility. City Gutierrez Middle School, and then Red Mountain Arsenal is there listed. So the other is just the miscellaneous that fall under that amount. So anything below $3,000 have compiled together into that last category there. General aviation, I put in its own category, and then advertising, that is an area that we'll be looking at trying to increase some revenue in the actual terminal itself. So when we're advertising for companies, that we're able to charge them for that advertising. So if they're like New Mexico Military Institute has a hospitality campaign with me, so we'll hang some banners up for them in the airport to welcome their cadets into the terminal when they come in. That's one revenue. If the cab companies are wanting to advertise, then we charge them to put a sign up so that they can be contacted.
So one of the things, Mike, jump in on this, that we used to have down there was access to and information on Raleigh Travis County EDC. And that has gone away over time.
Okay.
Is that something that, Mike, you think would be beneficial to folks coming into the area?
Yes, sir. I think that what you really need is some just basic Roswell information. You don't see much about Roswell. You see Ruidoso, you see Artesia, you don't see your own town. I think you should, I missed that before to tell you folks, but I've never seen anything, unless I don't know where it's going. I mean, I'm in the baggage, I'm looking at the baggage here. So I would suspect, I think we used to have, didn't we have a monitor once in a Joe? Down there that, you know?
Yeah.
We
Didn't
do
we
have
have a monitor that had stuff?
Yeah, it ran about 4 to 6 different.
I've seen that for a long time. Maybe it's something we look at.
Will do. It is something I've been trying to address is the campaign that's down there. I've been working with Juanita and the tourism board with trying to get more information in, not necessarily this advertisement, but at least getting we didn't have paper travel during COVID, so we're trying to get all of those things back into place. And we lost a lot of the advertising during that time frame that were the pictures and everything that were above the baggage claim area. So those are things that we're re-engaging. A lot of companies have not been able to come back full force yet. I've engaged them. Spencer Theater has said that they really can't afford to come back yet. So those type of things will, I'm engaged with them, but they have not returned full-hearted. I'm interested in the Travis County that you're talking about, because it's not something that I know. So I'd like to have conversation to be able to understand what you're asking me to look into.
So I think the paper stuff that's down there that people see to go to Lincoln, wherever they're going, that's probably good. But where are most of the people, as soon as they get off the aircraft, they're in that end of the terminal and they're standing there waiting. So if we've got a video display up above where the baggage comes out, to me, that's the ideal place to run through a series of different notifications of different things.
Well, I should be able to work with Juanita to get our campaign back up and running on that display. So I don't know if the monitor is no longer working. I will do my homework and get that addressed.
Report back to us on
Will do.
Okay. Go ahead.
So we, unless anybody has any more questions on that slide.
John's got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I may have not heard you. The rental car leases, counter spaces, are they in?
They fall under non-aeronautical, they do, they fall under non-aeronautical, even though they're support to the terminal, I categorize them that way.
That's understandable. I'd ask about the tax or an airport fee that the rental car agencies charge. How does that come into our revenues in the city?
We have not implemented CFCs yet, that is on my list of things to do. So that is, we do have PFCs that come in, those are passenger facility charges that come from the airline, but the rental cars have not been set up yet to, it's a pass-through basically, so it's a customer visit.
And what does it take to do that?
Basically, I need to work with,
Yeah, they're really, probably the immediate answer, and as many people would help people too, but it would take council action to enact anything of that nature.
No, I no longer have any sympathy for rental car companies. And by golly, they could pay something for the benefit they're getting out of here.
Right, that's a pass-through
it's
to
a
the
pass-through,
to the
yeah,
consumer. So
the
you're-
customer pays.
Well,
for it.
most of those consumers are visitors in town.
Okay, that's
And
true.
when I go to California, I pay through the nose.
When you go
And
anywhere,
ours are reasonable.
when you go anywhere.
Yeah, most cities on rental cars are more than a car.
But, and also, is it correct that our PFC is at the maximum allowable?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Sir. Oh, the coffee shop.
The coffee shop is under their, under non-aeronautical as well. They are on a commission base only, so they're based off of the sales.
And that's understandable. I would, the other number should not be such a high percentage in relation to the other line. That number is just too big to get your arms around.
So I think what John would like to see, let's reduce the amount of the top 5 or 6, not reduce, let's increase the number of line items that we've got so that the other line is
Agree.
lower. So that means it'll be a more lengthy report, that'll satisfy his needs.
No problem, I can do it. Any other questions on this slide?
Go ahead, Jim.
We'll go to the next slide. So I took that monster spreadsheet that I provided for y'all last time and summarized it into a summary to give you an overview of our leases. Some of our leases include more than one parcel. So I have broken these down into parcels of leases. So we don't actually have 92 leases. We do have 92 parcels leased out. So just to help with some numbers or how they're tied together. I did divide them for you as commercial aeronautical versus non-aeronautical parcels in line item 4, I guess. And then I also provided kind of a timeline as to where we are, an overview of leases that are expired, those that will be expiring in the next 30, 60, 90, and 180 days. So you can see where we're at. We currently have 23 parcels expired, not 23 total leases. And those are ranging from either being in negotiations, in the process of going to legal, at council, or they are terminating because they are not renewing. Down below, I gave where that status numbers are. So are they active leases? Are they in negotiations? Are they due for renewal, which I have some, I believe Aflight is one that is due, so they have 6 hangars total. So that'll be a renewal of a term that's already built into their lease. So that's what the renewals do. Approval process, as I've explained, that they're either going to legal on awaiting a signature because they have gone through council or they are going to council. The 4 that are terminating, I can explain those. Alien City Dragway was one of those that contains 3 parcels because they have 2 buildings and a record or the land parcel. They are in negotiations again, so they had given us a termination, but they brought themselves back to the table. Them right now. And the other one that terminated is American Aggregate, and they did leave a vacated property last week. So
So out of the total of 4 terminating, that's up to you.
yeah, one person to settle. Holdover is in conjunction with those that have expired or that they are in negotiations. In our lease, we have some terminology that states that once they're in holdover, they're kind of in a holding pattern, if you will, and they have agreed that they pay a 5% of their leasehold for that to stay in that status while we're working through negotiations. Whether that be on their part or our part. We were in a small moratorium for a while, so I have a few that are in there. A lot of them are going to legal this month. And so we'll be going forward from there on those leases. But it's my goal to not have anybody in holdover. So I'm working diligently to change the way that picture looks, but we currently have 14 parcels that are
In the leases that the city has for the tenants, is there a specific category in there for holdover that defines the amount of time that someone can be in holdover? And is there a specific item in there that says, because you're in holdover, if it's the tenant's fault, is there a specific dollar amount or percentage of the rent that they have to pay in addition to the normal?
It's 5% in addition to the normal rent. We do not have a specified time that they can be in holdover. That lease terminology is specific to holdover. So they're understanding that that's where they are. Once they go in holdover, I send them a letter notifying that they're in holdover and that their rent has increased by that 5%. And that I try really hard at that point to move negotiations forward, but there is not a designated amount of time that they can.
So in this particular instance, since we've got 14 in holdover, are all of those the city problem because of COVID or whatever? Or are some of those the tenant's problem?
Some of them are the tenant.
So 2 or 3, 6, 10, you don't know.
I do know, they're in the detail. Beyond in your packet, there's some detail behind anything that's in holdover is listed in yellow and states that they are in holdover. Get to my packet.
And I take exception with the comment that you didn't say how many were tenant problems. We've been waiting on the city to present a revised lease.
Correct.
Which I think the city manager said would start happening after June. So we're still patiently waiting.
I think that's in very good.
It's out, we've got them out.
So, okay, so let me go to the next question. Here we've got on the land side, we've got nine properties that are vacant. Does that mean we've got 9 parcels of land that should have a lease on them, but we don't have a tenant for them? Is that what that means?
They're not the parcels of land, they're the actual buildings. So, and there are, I believe there is one that is on Airside, which is a T hangar that is open.
Okay, so all 9 of the currently vacant properties are buildings that we don't have a tenant for.
We do not have a tenant for, and I listed in the detail under the vacancies, the ones that are marketable. And then I have 3 that are listed that are definitely due an evaluation before we market them, so we can make sure we're displaying our best foot forward. So that they do require some evaluation before we market them.
They're really gonna do mold remediation in one fall?
It's something that we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence with our assets to look whether we're going to remediate mold or we're going to demolition the property.
Okay.
I think on any of our properties going forward, we will be spending the time to make sure that the value is going to be there, or if it's actually at end of life. My background is that I was a fire and water damage restoration contractor prior to my life here. So we're going to look at that. I'd like to have somebody come in and tell us how much is it going to cost to remediate that property before we just say, well, there's mold in there, we should just get rid of it.
And one other question, your price per square foot right now, your buildings, you have 0 to 2419. What's 0 and what is 2419?
So 0 is, for an example, I'm using New Mexico Youth Challenge buildings. We only get $1 a year for them, but they put millions of dollars into those buildings. So we're only charging them $1 rent per square foot. That's not going to register. So there's a couple of land parcels, I believe, that are that way as well, that don't register as more than a penny per square foot.
That looks like the dorms and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
What's $24.19 a square?
The $24.19 is an IT room that we have here in the terminal. It is for the American Airlines reporting equipment. It's specific to them. And we have a closet. It's a 60 square foot closet that we keep them in. And so they pay $4.19 a square foot for the security of that.
So Jenna, the building, 112,
Yes.
that warehouse building, there were 3 tenants in that until mold cropped up. It's my understanding that one of the tenants got all their stuff out of there. The other 2 still have equipment, materials, something in that building.
The Matt's veterinarian outlet, he has everything outside of the building. He has some things that are on there's a horse trailer and liquid, I don't know what they're called.
Carrier.
Yeah.
Carrier.
The cages that carry them.
Cages.
Yeah. Liquids. Right, there you go. Those are on the outside of the building. New Mex Plastics, I last spoke to him and he was to be out a month ago. I have not spoken to him since then, but I can check up with them. And then AirSale is the other tenant that is in there. I've been in contact with Chris Huber. And they were kind of just trying to find someone for their items to go or dispose.
And those tenants, because they don't have access to their stuff that's in there, we're not charging them rent, are we?
No, we are not.
Okay. We don't have any intention of charging.
No.
Okay.
The one on the,
Lawn warehouses, dock-high warehouse.
with the road.
Railroad track down the middle.
Okay. So we're trying to use- Well, there's several buildings that fit that description over there, whichever one, 112.
112 is closest to the youth, or child one. 115 is on the other side.
Which one of these is the large blue office building?
1081 that ATS was in before.
That's the one over by default.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1081.
So that says hangar warehouse.
There's a large warehouse or it's manufacturing is what I call it. In the
Okay.
back side of the building is nothing but big warehouse space for big overhead doors. So depending on how they want to utilize the space, it could be used for manufacturing.
Does the 65,000 square foot include that space plus the office space?
Yes.
So on the vacant properties, the reason that we're, just so the commission knows, the reason that we're doing this, and looking at this, is from a business perspective. We need to identify what we have to do to ensure that they're rentable. And the next thing we have to do is, John, I'll go back to you. What are we doing to market these buildings? And my guess is right now, some of these are not rentable. And we're not doing anything to market them. Is that correct?
1081, we have not done any work to market it at this point because it is due for an evaluation for us to understand
Okay.
what the cost is going to be to get it to where somebody can walk in and not see, see the tiles on the floor, that type of thing.
So from the standpoint of oversight, Mr. Fuentes, on these that are vacant, that aren't doing anything except costing the city money at this point, I would hope that, and Jenna, you can tell me, but within the next, since we've identified these now, within the next 30 to 60 days, we ought to know two things. One, what do we have to do to get the property into rentable condition? And we may not have funds to do that. I understand that. So what do we have to do? The second thing is, what are we going to do to market this property? So let's identify, but let's start with worst case scenario, which we got stuff that's vacant now. And so if we can get an update on those two items for the vacant properties. And then on the others, what my goal was, and of course this is, I think you've got it broken down pretty good, but as far as us having time again, we've now got it. So if anybody on the commission would like to see a different breakdown than what I gave Jenna to provide us with, so that we can look at that, especially those that are coming upon releasing or redoing the leases, we need to identify those at the top of the list or a special sheet or something, so that we can actually walk through with your help. What are we doing with these properties in the leasing aspect of them before it goes to legal committee? They just, there's no backup there except what you've given them. So I'd like us to be able to weigh into those. I don't think we can do that today, but that's my next goal once we get the vacant stuff identified, and what do we do with that?
Okay.
So go ahead, John.
And I guess the other question, our natural exposure to the world is sitting right across the table. You probably are in contact with people making inquiries all the time. How can EDC help in leasing any of the outside of the airport?
Well, I view that as one of our responsibilities, frankly.
And do you feel you have the freedom to do that?
Well, I think we got the freedom to be able to engage and get information from the staff, to work with the consultants and work with companies. But what I don't have is what condition are the facilities? What's the price structure? I don't have the details of each facility. This is an area that we've been having struggles getting. So if we have the right information, and we should be doing that. It's in our contract to do that.
So, one, how can we help the airport market these properties that are sitting unused? And get this information to the man that needs it.
If we, Mr. Chairman, if we just get the information as I just mentioned, and give it to us, and we'll take care of it. It's that simple, because we'll contact commercial real estate folks, consultants, we'll do our outreach, and we get the calls. We get the request for proposals, and we need that information because they're asking for that. If we have anything that fits, obviously, we want to get a proposal with that actually source. just this information.
along with that, I don't think that the city has adequate expertise to identify all the problems. For instance, on the long warehouse, we're gonna have to hire somebody to tell us what we can do to mitigate the mold. So if we don't have the expertise to do some of those things, and it's gonna come up later in our agenda here, we've got some options. Hopefully, if we can get the attorney to get his job done on joint powers, hopefully if we can get that done, and then get some commitment from the county to assist with the possibility of stuff that I'm going to bring up here in a little while. So all that being said, I think that we can't give everything to Juan to give to Mike yet, but he can have the basic information, even if he doesn't know maybe what's wrong with the building, which is not ideal, because if he's going to market it, he needs to have some semblance of knowledge of what it's going to take to put that thing into marketable condition. And right now, we don't know that. So we've got to work. Does that sound? Okay.
I'll add a little bit too, Mr. Chairman. So, back in February, my directive to staff was to find somebody to do this work and inspect all of the buildings. I believe that everything out here at the Air Center should be inspected once a year. So the process was to build that process because we've never done that. We love these buildings to death. And so the whole idea was to pull this back around and find out exactly where we're at. And so I think the challenge we have is that, and I think we get all the information Mr. Spritu with EDC in order to be prepared to market, but I think we want to be very strategic as to when we trigger what type of marketing. I think building 93 is one that's very close to being fully completed. I think we just got done with the roof and everything. That's the old cookie factory, in case anybody doesn't know. And I think those are the ones that as we get these things back in check, we put them back out into that market. And so I think that'd be the goal. So we're a few months behind from what my directive was.
All right, any additional comments? I appreciate staff's putting this information together. Anybody that's here, either on the city council or on the commission, if you've got some other way to present this info, please get with myself and or Juan and or Jenna so that we can make this document an informational document that's actually usable, that we can make decisions with. Because until this meeting, we've never had anything like this at all for this commission meeting. So if we can make it better, let's make it better. All right, does anybody have any other questions on any of the information that's presented? I know we haven't had time to digest it, but if you've got some questions, we can take a few minutes to walk through it.
Mr. Chairman, I think on the vacant buildings, from what I see right here, there are really two buildings that are probably the most marketable at this moment.
Okay.
Probably 93 and 1081 are the ones that can be brought up to speed. So I guess my suggestion or just thought is maybe those ought to be focused to get that information to Mike. Okay. So Mike could possibly find.
Sure. Did you get that, Jenna?
I did.
93 and 1081.
The rest of them probably
May take a while.
Yeah, we're hold it.
Okay.
All right. Most of the buildings on this list are functionally obsolete.
Okay.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, it'd be great to have staff to verify what they would like to do. Or we can move on from there. Because it's not up to me, just.
No, I'm just saying, you prioritize your list.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's not the city folks do that. So they can.
So Jenna's got those two addresses. So she'll work on that, run it through Lauren, and get it to Mike. Thank you. Okay. Jenna, do you have anything else on your lease report?
No, but I would like to just report that we did have an insurance inspector with us for the last 3 or 4 days. I'm out here at the properties. We went through every building that is insured for them to look at every aspect of the building and to reevaluate their value.
Is that from a municipal league?
Independent party that's working for the municipality.
Is that a shareable report when it comes out?
Yes,
Yes.
rates are going up.
All
Going up a lot.
insurance rates go up.
I'm just telling you, we've had a lot of damages. The biggest cost of municipal league insurance is our fees. That's what they told me. I don't know.
Okay, let's move on to item number 8. One, the airport lease policy.
Yes, Mr. Chair, council members, does everybody have, I'm sure it's been passed in the past, or if it hasn't, let me just show the commission members, I have extra copies. The airport lease property, this was on the agenda last time when I met with the chair. I wasn't sure what the discussion had to occur as far as this item. Was there any consideration or any changes? So, Mr. Chair, committee members, again, not sure what the intent was for this item to be on the agenda for last month, or if there's any discussion about reviewing the document, making recommendations, making changes that will be forwarded to committee and council. Mr. Chair, if you'd like to kind of help them.
First of all, I didn't know we had this. And so that probably meant that nobody on the commission had it, which I'm guessing is the case. And so what I'd like us to do is not go through this now, but if the members on the commission would please review that. If you've got some questions that Juan can answer, let's query him, and we can put this on the agenda for our next meeting if we need to update or change or provide that back to city council. I'm sure the city councilors have this, do you not? And that needs to be provided to them.
And I do, I have a few extra copies. So, Mr. Chair, let me give you a little background on this. You guys can go from that point because you want to review it. This was approved by the city council on November 9, 2017. And the idea was to try to pull together, at that point in time, we had leases of all shapes and sizes. We had processes out there a lot of different ways. This document, we took a couple months, I think it was November when we got done. I got here in April. So during that window of time, we did a lot of research and development from other communities. I think there's a Washington there, Sitter in there is where we found our template document with that as well too. So this document is meant to be evolved and meant to change and everything. I will state that based upon this document, when it was approved in 2017, is where the user pays policy started. And that was in order to develop out the funding when we do these leases, so that whoever the leasee is can put money back into the building and fell through the lease, rather than to try to figure out where else we're going to find money in order to fix the stuff out here. So this is the document that was started. So as you review it, consider those pieces within there. I think it's fairly simple to read through there, but this is the one that actually started the whole conversation and trying to get our hands wrapped around what this asset is out there.
So any updates, changes, or corrections that anyone on the commission feels needs to be done on this, let's bring that forward at our next meeting. Yes. Councilor Hildebrand, you had a question?
Mr. Chairman, we had some leases full legal committee last meeting, and would like someone to take a look at the lease that we're using. Because there's a termination clause in there. We go through this whole lease process. And then there's a termination clause. It might be a 5-year lease. But it says, here, I give you notice, I'm done in 30 days. No financial repercussions at all. I've never seen it. And so I would like you all to take a look and dive in deeper than that, to make a recommendation as to those termination clauses. Because if I sign a 5-year lease, if I get a 30-day out, there's no repercussion for me to come and say, I signed it 2 days later, I'm done.
Which obviously that's not a typical way for anybody to have certainty in conducting business.
Right.
But my guess is this man right here can give us some background for that. If he doesn't have good answers for us, then let's work to fix it.
Yeah, I think you just take a look at it and make a recommendation. That's what I'm looking for.
So do you want the commission to look at those?
Yes.
Yep.
The other thing that I noticed in those leases was the termination clause was not the same in each one.
Yeah, they were different.
And so we need to get some kind of, somebody needs to figure out what it needs to be.
They just need to settle. I think one of the parameters you're going to allow them to use for that termination. Right. Because we saw some, the city can get you out, they can get it out. There was some 30-day notice. There's one where the city couldn't get you out, but the individual could get out. So there just needs to be some parameters so that they know what to work with.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair and Commission and everybody, there was an evolution within them. I mean, if you go all the way back to the Millennial Bus Plant lease as well too, that one was addendum a few times and it tightened up exactly what we could or could not do. I would suggest that along with talking with legal on this as well too, speak with the EDC as well, because some of these changes that we actually had occurring in the terminations were requested by the businesses for their needs for maintaining business and such. And so I agree with the counselors here is that we need a similar format for everybody in order to do that. It's our lease, it's our stuff that we're leasing out. So it needs to be corrected for that. But I wanted to make sure that everybody had a little bit of that background because I can remember some of those conversations and the negotiations with certain leases that they needed a little more surety or something. And so we started adjusting because of that.
Well, and when you're negotiating leases, I'd like to see your term for negotiation, by the way, is that can be something that can be negotiated, but I agree with my chairman legal that we need to have some parameters.
Yes, sir.
Whatever they are, and then we need to stay in the ball once those parameters are established. And you need to have some flexibility when you go to a business on what you can and can't do. You need to establish parameters, and you need to stay within those parameters. You need to have some continuity in your leases also in some areas. And there needs to be room for real negotiation.
So it sounds like from what you two professors have brought up, what we need to do is identify those specific leases that you've looked at, that you've got concerns about. Since you're a legal chair, we just need to do that. That needs to go to our city attorney, and that probably needs to be weighed in on with EDC to standardize some of that terminology for lease termination.
Right, because the time it gets illegal, that lease has already been negotiated.
Right.
It's too late then.
Yeah.
So it needs to stop.
So if we can develop a standardized termination thing, unless there's a specific thing for a specific tenant.
Well, and that's where this lease document came from as well too, because by the time it gets there, the negotiations have reached a certain point as well too. So the idea was this document was to help staff know what to negotiate and put those parameters in place early so that when it does reach the council, all those primary details are worked out, and all it is just a little nudge here, a little nudge there based upon specific needs. That was the intent of this document, so. But I think that's where I think we meet all these needs as well too.
So, Mr. Fuentes, this document obviously is a good document that we need to revisit. So,
Mr. Chair, I can actually give a partial update. So if you look at section 3 in terms of agreements, we're going to be updating this to have guidelines for the link exit to an exit clause. Now, that said, to address the earlier, our floor as far as pricing is kind of determined by something we discussed last week or last month. And so definitely exit clauses are a negotiation point, but there will be guidance within the policy that will be presented to you guys.
it will better standardize.
Yeah, and I guess I should say for legal, all the contracts unfortunately were legally sufficient, but we will be putting in the guidance.
So that city staff and whoever is negotiating has better guidance. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, would it be appropriate if Mr. Esposito and I work with the city attorney, come up with a recommendation?
Oh,
I think that would benefit the city attorney.
then just write it up and I'll put it in. I don't even have to read it.
No, you've got phone numbers for both these guys. Get a hold of them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your very much.
That's the better answer. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
instead of looking at specific leases that we've got, I'm not sure, just a quick, I mean, I got this policy 5 minutes ago like the rest of you, but it's a pretty good framework. Looks to me like just kind of thumb through it. Maybe I'll use it instead of any current leases. And you may find some things that need to be changed in this document too. This is a living document. This is in stone. So I would encourage you all to take a look at that. And I think I'd start with the document that we just handed out. If I was in charge, Mr. Chair.
We're gonna let Mr. Hitchcock and Mr. Spiritu and the city
I
attorney.
think that's a wonderful
work
idea.
through the process.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
One final question, Mr. Chairman. Does the Air Force or the DoD still have a right to take us back, or is that expired?
Are we considering giving it back?
Well,
No, okay. I'm sorry. I think the only way we lose control of this is we don't utilize it as an air center. And that's the only guarantees and everything that are associated with that.
I don't think the Air Force wants this back.
Oh, I'm sure they would, but there's something in their original grant.
I believe that all of that was honored, and we're at the point where this is the air center, as long as we operate it as such, it is protected for that use.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. Is this policy for land and buildings in and outside the fence?
My quick answer would be yes, because anything that is operated by the air center, whether it's inside the fence or outside the fence, because when you read through it, it does not specify numbers or anything. It specifies process and what we are willing to negotiate. And so any of the property that is operated, because the property that we are leasing outside of the fence as well too is considered revenue for the air center itself as well. And so all that whole big piece.
okay, gentlemen. We are down to item number 9. It's 3 o'clock, so we've been at this an hour and a half now. I had originally always tried to complete this in an hour and a half. I was pretty successful last month, not so much this month. But I think we can go through some of these last items here. reasonably quickly. So, Mr. Fuentes, item number 9, state legislative capital outlay funds.
Just real quick, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, these are the two grants that relate to the Air Center. The first one is the 5 million state appropriation. And what I'm providing here for you all is the legislative language. And I know it's hard to read, but again, I'll read it for you all. It is 5 million to plan, design, and construct hangars and infrastructure improvements at the Roswell Air Center. There is a art in public places allocation of $50,000. So although it's 5 million, it's actually 4,950,000. And so that's because by state, they take a portion of that appropriation for art in public places. 1%. 1%. So it is 4.9, not the full 5. But I wanted to just provide that language. And as well, we have the aircraft rescue and firefighting training facility. We have not received the agreement by the state, but the proposed funding was to be used for phase 1 of planning and design of that facility. Mr. Chair, with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Hey, what I'd like to do at this point, there's not much action, obviously, we can take on the second, because we don't have the funding. And Mr. Hitchcock, you had said that you wanted to discuss that, have a recommendation from this commission to go to the Walden City Council. So go ahead with your discussion.
Well, yes, it's my understanding after meeting with the county and the mayor and several of the councilors that additional funds were going to be needed to complete the water and sewer lines to the southeast portion of the airport. Now, I don't think a study has been conducted yet to determine exactly what that cost will be, but to move ahead, to have new facilities that are going to attract tenants, I think we need to complete that project, and I believe that is consistent with the direction that the mayor wants to move in. Is that the correct statement, sir?
It is with me. I think we need to go. I think, this is, I don't think people have any idea how much funds could be available. Or not. I mean, this whole thing, I don't know, in all honesty, I don't know who to believe about what, because I've been told 2 million to 6 million to do the water line and all that stuff. I don't know who I can believe. So, I mean, that's just where I am. And I don't know whether I can believe Armstrong Engineering, because all of a sudden they were given directions on how to respond to what my requests were. And so I don't know what to tell you. I just think that we need to plan and try to get as much money as we can to do that and to do other improvements on this place, on this base. And I don't know how much, there could be $1 billion again, maybe $2 billion in excess money in the state. I'm telling you, the state has got some money coming. And, if we don't ask for it, you'll never get it. I promise you that. And so I don't know, just being perfectly, there's nobody but being perfectly honestly and blunt, I'm looking at the polls that haven't changed about who's going to win. I'm sitting here looking at 48 to 40 to 40, there's 7 or 8% difference on when I look at those polls. Now, I know you never know what's going to happen in an election, but I'm going to tell you, I think we better be prepared. At least, we've got, you got some ends. It's got us. I think they've showed a bigger commitment than some of our own people have showed in trying to get jobs here. So, I think there's an avenue that's there that we ought to keep trying. And Lord knows if Ronchetti wins, he sure as hell ought to give everything to us. But I'm just talking about the one if it goes the other way. And I just, I don't know, you follow your polls and it just things haven't changed. This is a weird time. And polls have been pretty standard, about 8 points, 7 to 8 points of difference. And I think we need to be prepared. We need to have something to go up there and ask for a lot more money for this place to fix things. I mean, we've got $3 million somewhere that if we get a fine, we're gonna have to pay that somewhere, or at least fix $3 million worth of TSA problems here. And so, I mean, we need the money. And I don't know where we are on the other doghouse about if the Congress people have given the fact, if we solicit them and ask them to change. We can also always point out there's $2 million in a water line that's going over there because of the pollution that was caused over there on the south end or on the north end. And, you know, I mean, that can go to the feds and ask them for that. But, you know, we didn't get here overnight. We haven't had a lot of help on anything that the city's done an awful lot of this stuff all on their own, which other places would have got millions and millions of dollars. Do the same thing that we had to do with half the people we used to have here. So that's just me.
My feeling was simply that it'd be good to earmark sufficient funds to complete the project and not start another project that we may not be able to afford. We need to complete what we have so we can get the facilities
I agree.
to bring more people.
So, Mr. McDonald, you were next.
Yeah, I just was curious, wasn't there a water line already approved and being funded? Where does that terminate? Where does that line
It's
terminate?
over by there.
Mystic, right?
It just,
Yeah,
It doesn't make it past Mystic.
But does it go into the airport to Mystic?
Yes, it goes over to that side.
Okay.
The intent with the
Yeah, I know.
initial 5 million
Yeah,
is to get farther down.
It doesn't get it down to the,
But there's nothing down there for it.
but that's the spot where it'd be most feasible to build new facilities.
I agree with that. But if you're a Mystic, pulling the water line over to where it's most feasible, isn't gonna be that much more expensive, you know, just to go around. I guess, you got the water line there. You got the utilities already there. You're pretty close. So I know you're talking about phase 4 and all that other stuff, and bringing it around, that's good too. And I think if you can put together the plan, you should go for it. But right now, we got the water going nowhere. For water district.
And we're
All
gonna
reason
have,
we're finished.
we're gonna have that for a while. Yeah, if we don't have that, we don't have the opportunity.
You gotta have that.
Market we've got. Mr. Horn.
just a quick question. One, this money is done, it's ready to be shipped to us. We don't have it yet, is that right?
Well, we have the agreement executed.
Okay,
So if we're going to start using the money, we would just have to go through the process of requesting a notice of obligation for whatever expense we want to start using it for.
Okay.
That's how it works. And then it's on a reimbursement basis.
and what's
It's a
the time,
reimbursement basis.
Yes.
and what's the timeline when this money has to be used by?
The reversion date is June 30th of 26.
Okay, and part of the rules for encumbrance of the money is that you have to you have to encumber so much of it in a very short period of time.
Not on this one.
Not on that one?
No,
Okay.
no, sir.
So we don't, if we wanted to pursue the continuation of the water and sewer, what other utilities that we can, then we could go ahead and do the engineering study out of this money, correct?
Yes, the language provides for that use.
Well, I would recommend that you guys figure out at least encumber a portion of it to seal the deal, so to speak.
All we can do is make the recommendation.
I understand, but if you make the recommendation,
And I so move that we make that.
let's hear from Mr. Neville, and you can make your recommendation.
And there's nothing wrong. I appreciate the recommendation coming from this committee, Commissioner Forward. Mr. Tim and I are working with the EDA on that 2.7 million EDA grant that was going to go to the doghouse. We're finding out our process as to how we can move it and move it into another project as well too. This is the 5 million, and I think Mr. Hitchcock had mentioned it earlier that Councilor Perry went up and talked with the governor about. That's how this 5 million came around. We also have, based upon with the first 5 million that Mayor Jennings was able to receive for us, we put 3 million over to the Ascent project. We did the 2 million for that water line. There is $4 million more of LEADA money for infrastructure as well too. So the whole concept of what we had when we met with the county was trying to figure out what is all those funds that we have and then where are we going to go? Because I think the idea was, let's get a better plan as to what we were going to do going south on the southeast corner, because we want to make sure that those funds are actually utilized for that. So I just wanted to give you a bigger picture of everything that has been moving since our meeting with the county as well too. Do the recommendation however you see fit and everything, but just be aware of all these pieces that are moving.
So let me ask a question first. Who provides the engineering to extend from where we are stopped right now? Who does that?
Currently right now, we would utilize Armstrong to do that because Armstrong has put most of the information together. At the county meeting, we actually looked at a couple other plans when we were going to do a lot more parking out here. And so there was a plan for expanding out asphalt area for a lot more parking. And so, and because we already have that water line designed to come around that way, the easiest thing to get a vision or a plan as to what we're going to do would be to stay with them. So I'm in contact, Mr. Quincy's and I are in contact with Armstrong Thursday of this week so that I can meet the expectations of what we talked about at the county meeting in 2 weeks.
And another option is you go out to RFP just for this specific project.
And we could, and then I think that's where we can have an engineering firm just do this plan, and then we would walk through it, all those pieces.
It's my understanding, part of the holdup on the EDC $4 million is having engineered plans before we can get that money. We can cover that.
That was some of the conversation we had with the EDD. It was that they wanted a little bit more detail as to who was asking, how we were asking. And so I think Mr. Williams has reached out in order to make sure he knew that we were going to do this. So.
Okay, pretty significant discussion on this. I think we probably have enough info. If you would like to make a motion, John, in reference to encumbering this $5 million.
Well, portion.
Yeah. Sure, I may make a comment. I'm not sure when Armstrong was commissioned to do the wide body hanger study, which I happen to have a copy. You recall, Joe?
Yeah.
Which is really close to where the water line that's being placed goes to. I mean, it's really close. If you look at the pictures, and I apologize, I just had my file copy. It makes so much sense from an infrastructure standpoint that it achieves what we're talking about. Is bring the infrastructure, build a hangar.
Part of the BLM moving their fire suppression into that area, or to consider that if they wanted to.
I don't know if BLM was part of this discussion. I don't believe that. I think that was after this.
As far as I know, Mr. Chair, and this goes back to one of the questions about BLM moving, there has been no conversation that I am aware of with BLM to move. The only conversation that we have had was the roundabout or the taxiway around it, so that they would move the planes in a different fashion that would free up on that apron. So yeah, if we're going to have that conversation, because I believe it would not be a bad conversation to have, and get these tenants away from each other, but we have not had that.
And that's what we had asked.
Yeah. Okay.
approach that you're talking about.
Yeah, we have.
As far as I know, it did not happen. Yeah.
So like right here. Potentially.
So,
Yeah. It's right there, so if you come out, then you put a little spur in there.
so is there additional information that Mr. Hitchcock needs to know about?
So all I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is to make the recommendation to the city council
Okay, that's all.
to earmark sufficient funds, but the city manager needs to determine what pocket it comes out, be it lead it or whatever.
Hey,
I like that.
hey,
I think that'd be a nice motion.
let's listen up here, please.
Okay, it's simply to ask for this committee to recommend to the city council to earmark sufficient funds to complete the extension of the water.
Okay, so that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second to the motion? All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion as presented signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We'll make sure it happens.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, any additional comments to be made on the item number 9? Okay, let's go to item number 10. Mr. Fuentes.
Mr. Chair, just for procedural purposes, maybe Joe, you can help in or this is the recommendation of this motion, will it be going to the committee, then council, or straight to council?
The motion we just passed.
The recommendation.
Go to city council.
You guys help us with that. We'll take.
We just passed the motion.
I understand,
Okay,
but we'll take care of it.
all right. So Juan asked the question, does it go to committee or does it go to city council?
Either one works. I would always send these recommendations to the committee first and then forward from the.
So that means it goes to finance?
In this case, it could be finance, legal or anything, general service. Infrastructure. It could be infrastructure as well. So
I've been left out of this.
we'll determine exactly how to flow it through. Okay, we'll just take it from there too.
All right. Okay, let's go on to the next item on our agenda.
But that's outside of the scope of our authority and responsibility.
I will move it forward into the proper channels of the city council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, committee members, so this item was discussed at the regular meeting on September 13th. And as you can see there was a motion made to consider the framework for the authority and to be forwarded to the legal committee for the consideration. And that motion passed 5-0. Mr. Hess is here present to add any updates on that item. It was on the draft agenda, so I wanted to kind of just provide an update.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. You guys will have a draft for your next meeting. There are a couple of points that we've been able to, I think, in formal discussions with people have been able to talk about. The big point that is going to have to come to policy making, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Mr. Williams over at the county, is the financial contribution aspect. That is required before we send it to Santa Fe for approval. It looks like we have kind of informal approval of the actual governing body structure, though, which is the other thing. So look forward to that next month. Again, the finances will be the sticky wicket. And that's above my pay grade, so I'm gonna.
Do you have adequate people to staff the committee that will do that?
What do you mean,
The more joint, yeah, the joint committee.
well, there'll be 5 people for the actual authority ones that exists for. Yes, yeah. Yeah, so right now, and this is important, up to change by both council. There'll be 5 people, 3 professionals that are related to law, finance, and litigation, and then 1 commissioner over the council. And we think people seem to get on board with that. Viewers that we don't want. We don't want 10. That number doesn't.
No.
Make it no.
No, I was.
That'd be all.
Okay, any additional comments or questions of the city attorney on item number 10? So it looks like we'll have that available to discuss next meeting. So thank you. That's really less than 60 days. That's pretty quick.
Well, today's my 40th day on the job, and I promise 5 to 7.
Okay. All right, strategic plan draft scope, item number 11.
So this is another one of those items that was on the agenda last month, and was approved through a motion to go forward to the legal committee. You can see the voice vote was 5-0. However, in kind of looking through what was presented at the last month, I wanted to bring to your all's attention, just maybe for reconsideration. This is something that I just picked up on, and I was kind of putting the PowerPoint together. And so if you look over the next slide, so this was the original scope of the original evaluation criteria that was last month's scope of work that was presented, I assume, because that's what I found on file. But this was probably just the template that was used from a previous RFP. As you can see on item number 4, it says list of all vacuum. I think that was our janitorial RFP, but they used that template to kind of create for this RFP. If you go to the next slide, this is the evaluation criteria that is being recommended, and that is what's included in your packet. And again, it goes by the experience of the firm, qualifications of the project team, experience in working with state and FAA regulations, project understanding, and the cost proposal. It puts a lot more weight on the qualifications of the project team, as well as experience of the firm and project understanding. With the cost being, having just not so much. I mean, we want a good quality product at the end of the day, so we want to make sure we select the right firm. Because the original document was recommended to move forward to legal, and again, without being aware that that's what had happened last month, I'm making a recommendation to the advisory commission to maybe, if you agreed with this new criteria, to maybe re-adopt it or make another recommendation to move this document with this revised criteria forward to legal, which then would then go to, if approved by legal, then we move forward to the city council. Any RFP scope of work goes through committee, then council, and I believe from speaking with the procurement officer, this scope of work has not been taken through that process. So we are still within the time frame that we can, if it goes forward, it will make it to legal and then to the city council in the November meeting. As you can see at the first page of the RFP draft, there's an anticipated schedule. We might still be able to make that schedule. We may have to tweak it a little bit if we stay within the same action from this committee to legal and then to the city council.
So Mr. Fuentes, you're suggesting that this criteria, this scope of work on these documents will provide a better document to the city ultimately?
I believe so. In compared to what criteria we had in the original document presented last month, I believe this would be a better criteria to evaluate those proposals coming.
Any comments from the commission?
Can you pull up the other slide? See, I want to see the differences.
Well, you can see the big difference on cost proposal was 50 points. And again, sometimes I understand, you want to go with the lowest cost proposal, but sometimes that's always not the best approach either.
Mr. Mayor.
The only thing I can say is I think just because of where we've been in the past, I think our TSA and FAA requirements ought to be up a hell of a lot higher than 10%. I mean, all I'm gonna tell you, I don't think we got that good a track record to think that we only need 10%. Working with the regulations and getting along.
Any
That's probably one of the
other
highest.
comments on
That should be probably.
Any other comments on the new evaluation criteria? The one that's in the package you just did? Yeah. I don't know that the 10% cost proposal ought to be 10%, but I do think that obviously tilts the criteria towards a better quality product as opposed to just primarily being concerned about the cost.
So items 1 and 2, I mean, if you have experience, you know, they kind of fall together.
And this is a project that could take probably a minimum of 6 to 12 months. If you put this together.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just from a protest point of view, having 60 points with 1 and 2 could be described as squishy.
They can be spread out.
Yeah, if we could have that 40 points in qualification of team, having dealt with protests before, that's a great way to be able to argue point assignment being done. And so to maybe put a little of that into cost proposal could be advisable. I think that might be a standalone because they could, or something depending, and I want to see more, for example, like if they've ever had any disciplinary citations from FAA or TSA, like that.
Right. You should have experience working with state and FAA or English. Right. And you have experience.
Yes.
That should be weighted heavier is what people are saying.
Yeah.
But more than 10.
Right. I
think that should, maybe that should be 40 and the other one should be.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just in the 40%, I could definitely stand to be shaded a touch.
So just a suggestion, if nobody else has one, what if we knock the 40% down to 25%, take 5%, add that to the 10% for cost, and 10% and add that to number 3, experience, so that would be 20. What about that? Did you get that?
Add 10 to cost.
No, add 5 to cost, 5 to cost, 10 to number 3, experience, and take number 2 to 25%. Any comments or suggestions on that? What do you think, Mike?
All of that, but, when you look at number 4, I'm trying to rationalize 20 points for companies that understand the scope of the project. I mean, yeah, it seems kind of excessive. Shouldn't you understand the scope of the project? That's kind of high for
Push 5 on the cost and go 5 months of experience.
Yeah. So you can-
I don't have a problem with that.
So like number 3, what?
Make number 3 30, and make number 5
20.
Yes, 20, and make number 4 10. John, any comments on that?
Let's see.
Is that 100?
I think
You know what? It did one stay at 20,
Yeah.
One stated,
35 for 2.
25.
25.
25.
25.
Okay, thank you.
No, we're still at.
But I don't think that equals up to 100. Because did you say 20, 25, 30, 10, and 20?
Yeah, there's another 5.
They just changed that though.
No, it should be.
4 should be 10. Yeah, 4 should be 20.
So you still have a random 5 out there.
What do you have? for-
So you have 20 for 1, 25 for 2, 30 for 3, 10 for 4, and 20 for 5. So that doesn't equal up to 100.
It's 5.
It's 5 more to 15, or to 5 and 5 more to make cost 15.
Cost is already 20.
Because you're at 95 right now, so you have to have 5 to something.
2 straws. 4 costs. One of those.
I would experience.
Okay, so that's a 3,
Add 5.
so that'll be 5.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so let's run through it again. So experience, item number 1, 25.
20, no, 20.
You just said 25 a second ago.
No, we don't, number 1 is 20, number 2 is just.
Just give us a second.
Okay.
3 is 35. 4 is 10.
Okay.
5 is 20. And that is what we say.
Lisa, would you, would you repeat, did you get those numbers?
Yeah, so
Could you repeat it?
Okay, I've got 20 for number 1, 25 for number 2, 30 for, is it 35 for number 3, and then 10 for 4, and 20 for 5.
Yes. Okay, no further comments or adjustments. Let us. John, why don't you go ahead and move that be
Wait,
an amendment
I don't think it's
to.
100. Isn't that 110 now?
I so moved to amend the scope of work evaluation criteria as indicated.
Second.
That's 110 now.
So we've got a first and a second.
Yeah, that's 110.
That's 110 now. The numbers you guys just gave me is 110. I was just trying to make sure I wasn't going crazy.
Take 10 off for 2 5s, guys.
So let's,
Yeah, but.
Why don't you just do
Like
20,
20,
20,
30.
30?
Can we do that?
20, 20, 30.
Yeah.
Number 1, 20, number 2, 20, number 3, 30, number 4, 10, so number 5, 20.
Okay.
That's 100.
Yes.
Yes, that's 100 now.
So do you have the 100?
I do have 100 now.
Okay. So we've had a motion and a second with the new 100.
Who motion? You second?
Motion, John, motion, I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. So we'll adjust,
Figure that out.
Mr. Prentice will adjust the scope of work criteria by that amount, by the new amounts to go along with the RFP.
Thank you.
If we, Bob, would it bother you if I ask you how well your hour and a half meeting for?
I like city council, Mayor. When you're
I'm not
done, you're
gonna-
done.
I've got another meeting at 6 o'clock, so I got plenty of time. Okay, that was item number 11. Item number 12, 2017 action study review. I determined after my conversation with Mr. Fuentes yesterday that we were not going to have time because we're going to run over an hour and a half to go through that. What our intent is we're going to take that action criteria, we're going to split it either into 4 or 5 meetings, and we'll take those sections as we go through it and discuss those over the next 4 to 5 meetings. I just don't think that it's critical right now, considering everything else that's going on. Is there any opposition to that thought process? Hearing none, that's what we'll proceed with. Okay, John, do we still need to talk about marketing efforts or not?
No, I think the conclusion was that the staff will bring back just a summary or just a direction.
Yeah, that's the next meeting agenda, we'll bring that in.
Okay, I do want to bring up a couple more things that we have kind of discussed, but let's walk through it. One, were you able to find out anything about the naval training stuff else since yesterday? No. Okay, we still need to, that's still a criteria that I need you to check on for us. Okay. The Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway paperwork. Juan, what were you able to find out on that?
No, I haven't been able to make contact with Mike on that item.
Do you have the, Mike?
Yes.
You need the documents?
That's what I believe. I needed to kind of follow up and see what was the issue, what we needed to
He
get.
doesn't know anything.
Let me take it from here.
Okay.
If I could. That document was prepared by Burlington Northern. It went in, it actually ended up on legal's desk and everything. Let me get with Mr. Tema to bring that back and so we can get that wrapped up. So we were waiting for, Mr. Stark was waiting for a response from legal in order to initiate that agreement. We need this agreement with Burlington Northern to take care of the spur that runs into the air center. That's what this agreement is for. And so we'll run it down. And so
Will that get you off the hook?
yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, that's taken care of then. Let me see if I've got any, last thing I want to talk about, and we've already talked about this 2 meetings ago, is the BLM situation. And I want some discussion on that, specifically in reference to who will take the lead if we think it's a good idea. Who's going to take the lead to go contact BLM to see if we can convince them that this is a great idea to their benefit, to move their tanker base over on the other side of the runway, which then frees up space, makes it much simpler for the MROs that we've got on the north side of the runway. But I just want some discussion on that. And if we think that that's a possibility or a good idea, define who's going to take the lead to go try to negotiate that or do something with BLM.
Who do we need to see at BLM? Does anybody know if we need to go see the state BLM guy or start at the local level or?
I don't have any idea.
For it. Well, the way the feds work, at least BLM, I never had figured out how the Forest Service does their business, but you go to the state director, and it goes to get their thoughts. And then moves up the chain. And I'm not, like I say, sometimes the forest, you talk to local rangers, sometimes you go to Washington and nothing ever.
So let's first discuss, is this a good idea for the Roswell Air Center to do this?
To move it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's to the benefit of the other tenants.
Benefit that it's good to have the airbase, the tanker base here, but it's also so it doesn't cost money.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Does everybody know what Albuquerque's doing? Albuquerque, they're putting a $50 million increase in Albuquerque to make their airport take tankers, and so they can fill them as quick. Now, my only thing about it, I hate to have them run them off. That's what it was there. If they put $5 million out here and made that left turn thing where they could go off the end of that turnabout, 52s, and come back in, and they could fill that up for $5 million, because for big planes, it takes that much just to make a turnaround, and then they don't bother airsail or anything, and they can leave everything where it is. Just by putting that quarter circle around there, they can bring their planes in, and they can fill them up on all that, and then they don't have to pass each other, so they never bother you again. And I mean, so that's $5 million. I'm just saying it just makes good sense government-wise. You can use either the National Forest or the BLM. Right now, this tanker base is done by the BLM, and they have an agreement, I'm sure, with the forest. But if for $5 million, and you could fill up 2 tanker planes, and they want a building over there to put their retardant in to get it out of the weather. You know, or to keep it out of the weather, they said it would be easier if they had another place to put their equipment and where it's out of the weather somewhere by where they are now. They would be happy, because they could fill 2 or 3 planes up at once. If you just put that turn in there, so they don't have to go in there and make a wingtip to wingtip at 185 feet or whatever it is, they can't do that. And it makes sense too, because when those big planes, Bobby was telling me, when the big planes come in there and turn, they have to use damn near the whole space to turn those big planes around, and where you could just do it with that, quarter circle or
U-turn like that.
would. So but they're already committed to do the thing in Albuquerque, and I don't know, just to me, it doesn't take you but an hour to go from here to Albuquerque, or, and back. You're another flying time to get here, and you're not in all the congestion they are flying over those big mountains in Albuquerque.
Yeah, we should be able to make an argument that it's faster for them to refuel here, less traffic that they have to fight.
Yeah.
Well, we just need to have a convenient facility so they can go in, go out, not interrupt operations.
Yeah, it's not right to screw air sail every time they come in here. And we say, okay, we're gonna let you come in here for 3 months worth of work, and we're gonna bend over to kiss your fanny because you're gonna be here for 3 months.
Right.
When they're,
Yeah.
it's not fair to him. So
Mr. Mayor, how's our be funding that project? Are they funding through
the federal government's doing it. That's why we just tell them we add 5 more million to it, and then everybody here's done and out of the way. We can service all the way to Texas to Arizona.
Is Airshell allowed to use their ramp space again?
Yes.
Yeah, they are now, but that's,
Did you
but
get approval on that?
Formal. I
Need something
asked for
formal?
it several times, but
Who gives that?
Jenna told me to send.
Who would give that?
DD Air Center, and so we'll make sure that it happens. But I'm under the impression that as soon as that season was over, that
Somebody's got
that
it.
space
Somebody's
was-
got it.
That was my question, was when did the season actually begin?
Yeah. I can look, I'd have to look back at my emails, but I was kept abreast of at least when those things were happening. So we'll make sure you get a formal notice.
So Mr. Mayor, I think I absorbed what you just said. But putting that turn in over there to allow their large aircraft to come in and fuel up and put retardant on. AirSail, are you pretty convinced that will reduce your angst in having to move aircraft back and forth with 5 or 6 people?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's obviously the less expensive way to do that. The only caveat to that, and if that's the best way to do it, then that's the best way to do it. But the only caveat I have is if we're gonna put all this infrastructure in down to the southeast part of the air center, it sure seems like that would be a great use to move that thing down there.
Well, that's fine, but a lot of those, until we get a lot more heavier taxiways and stuff down there, probably, I don't know. I'd have to see about getting them way out of the way over there. This, all you gotta do is, it's already have the concrete, all you gotta do is a sweeping kind of left turn out of where they turn the B-52s around.
Yeah, or where the alert pads is where.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be the optimal place.
Or wherever it is down there.
Yeah.
It's right down, then they just turn and they come right in there. And all the fire stuff is right there in the middle.
Okay.
It's perfect.
All right, so there's not a need at this point then to go contact BLM to do anything.
Well, yeah, they're going to have a need to tell them what,
Ask them what they
this
want.
is a way to do it that saves them money and saves everybody.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Commissioners and Councilors, so from the emails that I was able to find from Scott, there was communication back and forth with a BLM manager on the proposed lease. There was already a lease that was being presented that talked about a bump out, some very small improvements. It talked about allocating $300,000 for the bump out. It was also asking for a new building for some of their car storage for another $350,000. That is what was being proposed by BLM. Now, if the plan as being discussed here is that that option is not going to be a good option because of the bigger vision of developing a bigger project to kind of assist the MRO out there, that would be something that would have to be communicated back to that contact in BLM, which then would trigger additional discussion from them. Now, I don't know if this is a formal, if we need to bring it back at the next month's meeting as a formal recommendation item, because that, again, that will change the conversation we're having with them on the proposed lease that they submitted to us here.
Based on what give us additional.
So, and the conversation that we've had, Mr. Chair,
Heads up here, guys.
the conversation with BLM, we are in negotiations with a new lease for them. The lease term timeline that they presented to us runs up to about 2050. So it's about a 30-year agreement. We need to, I think we need to keep the conversation going on this, is where my recommendation would be on this, because we don't want to enter into this long-term lease arrangement with BLM if we're having all these other conversations. Then I don't want to hold anything up too much, but I know that we had started with discussing just a little bump outs where the planes could get off a little bit farther off that apron. But that's not what our plan is for that bike, that whole taxiway around there. And so we really have to have this conversation anyway. And I think we can base it off the lease arrangements and everything and have that larger conversation. So
are you in agreement with Mr. Fuentes that we need to bring this back next month when we've got some more detail?
What I would like, and because we've already had the conversation with BLM, let us bring this, the lease conversation forward. Let's have the broader one, because in their agreement, they have no information in there about this taxi. So let's bring that back. I would say if it's not ready to bring back to you, I would rather hold that one back and say, I will bring it forward as soon as we get clarification on these issues.
And the taxiway is something that we anticipate the Fed's paying for?
That's what the mayor is asking for.
Okay.
And Jesse King runs the BLM thing. Okay? Jesse told me that the stuff he needed to have over there is he needed to have a warehouse building where he could store all his retardant and mix it and everything. He said if we had that warehouse, it would be very simple then for them to have enough stuff constructed that he thought they could fill, 1 or 2 planes real quick with that over there with minimal other stuff. He had a list of stuff that he needs here, whether they do anything at that place or not. He needs to have a hangar or a warehouse and a building to run in and get all his retardant out, to mix it, to put it into mixing vats and everything else. And so that was it. The whole thing was the $5 million, because I didn't think the city had $5 million to put in to a lease and, to make that turn. If you make the turn, it solves his problem 100%, because they don't even, they'll go in and make that turn and won't be over there having his planes doing run up, causing problems or something else, everything he gets accused of.
So the discussion has to be that BLM with the feds produce enough funding to put the turn in.
That's what we would like.
Okay.
Well, as long as they're in there $5 million, what's another $300,000 for the building? They'll do it all.
Right.
When the government, after these big fires, I'm going to tell you, they're going to rain money down. They always have. After all those fires in Rio Doce, or after that one in Los Alamos, they came back the next year. Every person who had an old rundown BLM truck or Forest Service truck came back with a brand new Ford, 3/4 tons. I mean, that's just the way they do things.
All right. So staff, work towards that. You're going to contact, or somebody on staff is going to contact BLM, tell them what a great location this is. We can get them to pay for pouring concrete. That solves the air sales problem. And then we don't have to deal with it anymore. And we don't have to try to move them to the south side of the runway. Is that a good summary of what we're after?
Simple, it's the easiest way to get them out of the way.
Okay. All right. Juan, you got that? Okay, thank you. All right. Potential agenda items for the November meeting. Does Juan and I can get together and come up with stuff, but does anybody have anything specific that you'd like us to talk about?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know we've talked about this before, and I know the city is moving towards the April master plan, which is on its cycle. Recently, I was at a Site Selectors Guild conference, and I attended a rural breakout session that talked about smaller communities and service they have to provide. And one of the topics was about care centers. And so I just want to say this, as I said before, but I think now it's being said in other circles, that's well outside my brain. The point is what is that first impression of our air center or town flight first time? Stop it. Coming to the air center and terminal and baggage claim and things of that nature is just not a really good first impression. I know the master plan is part of the process, but I just want to put it back out there that we can't forget. We still need to consider that an important part of economic activity, because you can't really consult for the first time when it comes to baggage claim and it takes some however long. You know what I'm saying? No, we've all been there, right? But we all live with it. But I think we've got to think about those things in a broader sense, because if we don't, we're going to be, we'll be that time. So.
Good comments. Anybody else? Juan, you and I can get together. It doesn't appear that anybody's got any specific things for the agenda. I know I've got a couple here that we'll talk about. If you have something, be sure and get with myself. Just give me a call. So the next meeting, we're going to have, hopefully, Lisa, within, today is what, the 11th?
Yes,
What day are you going to have minutes out for?
within 10 business days.
Okay, we'll have the minutes. Please, if you've got comments or red marks up, give me those. We'll re-input those. As far as an agenda and the items that need to go on the agenda, one, I'd like to have those 10 days prior to the next meeting, which is, Lisa, do you have a calendar?
The
The 8th of November,
second Tuesday, right?
second Tuesday.
Mhm.
And we'll determine, likely we'll be here, but we'll determine that for sure. And the time,
Please vote before you come, because you might be here all night.
no, you can
vote anytime.
You can actually vote today.
Really?
Yes.
Any other comments, questions, anything from folks that are here to observe? You're just observing. Okay. Any,
I had one comment. And I was wondering about an update of the events that led up to Vaughn getting his job.
I'm standing for it.
here we go.
That was coming.
Here we go.
I was here for it as
Oh,
well too. So, and so I will, when you're ready.
Since that's a question on the table at this point, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner.
Personnel, does it need to be shut off or something?
Correct. Well, we're not going to talk First, no, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but we had our number 1 and number 2 resign as of last week. We are now going out. We have reached out locally to try to find somebody in an interim for that basis. We have also reached out to the Municipal League's Airport Association, looking for an interim airport manager at this point in time. We are updating the job descriptions currently, bringing them up to date with how we do job descriptions now. They should be ready by Friday, and we will be soliciting at least somebody to come in for that.
Oh, you got to post it.
We're posting it by the end of this week. The challenge we had is that you have a lot of different conversations going on with the joint powers, with a lot of different variables, but all of those conversations take time, and we really need to get an interim, if not on our way in that process. And so that's where we're at. And I would say that we have been working out here on a few things. You guys, I think, are in a unique position with the commission of the challenges that we all have trying to take care of this beast known as the Roswell Air Center. And so we believe we're moving in the right direction for that. And I won't get into any more detail than that because, again, there's that thing. But both of our number 1, number 2 employees resigned at last.
That being said, will that information be obviously be provided to the city council specifically in reference to what we're going to do to replace them?
Yeah, we'll get into that whole conversation about that. The responsibilities, because they were employees that left, they're employees that put back, unless we change the structure. Okay. And so that's the intent of how we're going to fill both positions. And during that time, of course, I have Mr. Fuentes out here right now just trying to help hold the pieces together, but we've got great staff underneath there. We've got Lisa in the office. We've got Martin out at buildings and grounds and everything. We're solidifying that section. We've got Jenna with tenant relations and Don Fisher with our security side. So our second and third tiers are pretty solid. We're missing the guidance at the top, and so that's where we're focused right now. So we've got our hands on it. If there's anything, I know Mr. Utima and myself, we stay close to this as well too, and so just let us know what's not working right, and we'll be able to help move this stuff.
Okay, Mr. Prentice.
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chair, committee members, if to do a better job next time to prepare for the agenda, as an example, the questions that Mr. Hitchcock had on the financial stuff, I welcome if you have an opportunity to come on down, let's visit so that you can see the numbers and make sure that next time I provide the information that you're looking for. If anybody else is needing additional clarification or information, please let us know ahead of time. That way we'll do a better job to prepare. So, but Mr. Hitchcock, if you have some time, let's visit, let's go over the numbers, and that way we'll have everything ready for you all. If the goal is to have the packet 10 days ahead of time, we need your input to make sure we get it.
Next one, could you just, Ned probably goes without saying, could you make sure that if it's on a slide, it's also in paper? So we can see it. If it's here, I have trouble seeing too.
No, and we're gonna try to replace this with an actual TV for better viewing, but we will provide the PowerPoints.
If you got a slide in one.
Put it in the budget, we'll think about it.
I'm just a year. I appreciate everybody's patience today. Yes, you're right, Mr. Mayor, it did go longer than an hour and a half. Are there any other comments from anyone in the room? No further comments. I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. First and second. All those in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Thank
I
you.
hadn't thought of that. We passed the hat in city council, we get a TV for the airport.